Well, hopefully you downloaded the resources as you work through the lesson on the Greek alphabet. We have the worksheet, the sheet music for the alphabet song, and then the actual song. But for our purposes, what's important, as always, is to download the workspace file for this particular lesson, and I've already done so. So let's get started. I'm going to make the Greek a little bit bigger, and I could click on the capital A, but if you like the keyboard, it's Command plus for whatever the selected window is. There, that's nice and big. And I'm going to turn off the highlighting just because it gets in the way just a bit for this lesson. So go under there to Instant Details and make sure that that is unchecked. In this lesson, we focused on the Greek alphabet, and so what I want to do is pull up John 3:16 and work through it and just make sure that you know what all the letters of the alphabet are. And this is something that you just need to practice until you get it. You really can't go much further in the primer without knowing the alphabet, so this is one of those things you just have to work on. So let me just go through the first part of the verse, and I will go to a letter and put the cursor underneath it, and you try to think of what it is, and then I will say it. Okay? All right. So what's the first letter? It's an omicron, upsilon, tau, omega, sigma, gamma, alpha, rho, eta, gamma, alpha, pi, eta, sigma, epsilon, nu, omicron, theta, epsilon, omicron, sigma, tau, omicron, nu, kappa, omicron, sigma, mu, omicron, nu. So how'd you do? Okay, this is just something you need to practice on, and you can get your worksheet out and make sure that you're right as you work through the rest of John 3:16. If you can get comfortable with the names and the sounds of all the letters in John 3:16, it's actually all of the alphabet except for just a couple letters. And I'm going to show those to you in a second. So you should just practice on this until you're comfortable. As we get into the next chapter, it's going to be important to be able to identify the vowels. You're going to find out that there is basically one vowel per syllable, so it tells you how to pronounce the words. So let's work through the first part and see if we can identify the vowels. They are omicron, upsilon, omega, alpha. The next word's got several, doesn't it? The vowels are eta, alpha, eta, epsilon. The next word is just a vowel, omicron. In theos, it is the epsilon and the omicron. And again, you need to go through here and make sure that you can clearly identify the vowels. Now, I use the highlighting function in accordance to kind of help you on this. So there's all of the single vowels. You're going to find out in the next chapter that when you have two vowels in a row, if the second one is an iota or an upsilon, they're called a diphthong and they're pronounced a little differently. So right here you have all the single vowels, and then if you go into the highlights to define them, I do have a highlight style called diphthong, but I defined it as white so you couldn't see it. If I change it to some other color, then you can see all the double vowels together that are forming diphthongs. You may want to stop the video at this point and make sure that you can clearly identify all the vowels in the verse. There's only actually two other letters in the Greek alphabet that you don't see in this verse. And let's go find some examples of them. We're going to start by turning the highlighting styles to something else so they'll go away. And then I want to go back into preferences and enable instant key number highlighting again. And let's make this just a little smaller. The second letter of the alphabet is a beta, and there's not an example of that. So let's go find words that begin with beta. So what you do is you go up here and say, I want to search in the GNT. I want to do a word search. Now, if you type in just a beta and hit and do your search, and you can do that by clicking over here as well, nothing is going to happen because the single consonant beta isn't a word. And this is a really important thing that just happened. If you type in a word and it doesn't exist in that translation, this pane drops down to show you what all the options are. Now you could just like double click on Baal and do your search, and there you have an example of a word beginning with beta, Baal. But another way to do it is to go back up to the beginning and use what is called a wildcard. If you type in a beta followed by an asterisk, what you're asking Accordance to do is to find every word that starts with a beta, no matter how many letters follow it. Well, then you get Biblos and Boaz, Basileia, and you get all those words. So this is called a wildcard search. The other letter that we don't have is a C, which is a Y on the keyboard. And so then you can search and find, well, here's Psuche, there's your Psi, Pseudomonoi, and again, there's your Psi there. Now, while I'm talking about wildcard searches, let me just show you a couple of things. I'm going to switch this back to the Mounce translation because I want to search in English. And I want to search for the word love. Now, this is what you get out of a normal paper concordance. You put in the word love, and here comes every word in the translation that has the word love. And you'll notice that it found 219 examples of the word love used in 188 verses. But if you were studying the concept of love, you really wouldn't care whether it's love or loves with an S or loved with a D, would you? And this is one of the limitations of paper concordances, but it's a limitation that electronic concordances can get around with a single keystroke. If you type in love and then our asterisk wildcard and then search, notice now you have 296 hits in 236 verses. Well, the reason is that it not only got all the examples of love, but see, there's loves, and you keep going on, and there's loved. It would also find any other word that was spelled L-O-V-E plus any number of letters. Well, there is a second wildcard that's important to understand, and I know this doesn't have a whole lot to do with the Greek alphabet, but it's really basic to using accordance, so I thought I would stick it in here. If you go back to love, and this time add a question mark, what you just searched for, and you found 72 of them, is any word that is spelled L-O-V-E and one more letter. In other words, love question mark finds loves and loved. But interestingly, it doesn't find love because it requires 5 letters in the search. But let's say you wanted to find all of the verses that have the word love and loves and loved. There's several ways to do it, but the easiest is just to go back and type in love and then enter the command or. So this is going to find every verse that has the word love or loved or loves. And there's 291 of them. So those are just the real basics of wildcard searching. Important to understand. Okay, one other thing. We learned about gamma nasals. So let's find a couple of examples of words that have gamma nasals. Again, if you type in just Gamma Gamma, and by the way, you'll notice that Accordance knows to use the Greek font because you have the translation set to the GNT. If you switch this to an English text, it switches the font for you all automatically. Well, if you search for Gamma Gamma, obviously you're not going to find anything because it's not a word. Well, then let's use our little wildcard and put an asterisk after that. Well, what that tells you is that there is no Greek word that begins with Gamma Gamma. Well, then what you can do then is simply put an asterisk in the front as well. And this is going to find any word where there's a Gamma Gamma somewhere in the middle of it. Well, there's 641 of them. And the most obvious is going to be the word for angel, angelos. I want to make this a little smaller just to get more on the screen. Let's say that you want to find some examples that aren't angelos, such as more examples like this one. What you'll do is go back up here to the search box and do a Command-Shift-N, and it's going to say, I'm going to find everything that has Gamma Gamma, but I don't want the word angelos. Now when you hit it, there's a lot less, and you can get some other examples of the Gamma Gamma situation. Okay, two other just quick things. If you're not sure on typing, and this is true for Greek and English, let's say you type in something like alpha, gamma, gamma, epsilon, and maybe you think that's a word or something. If it's not, when you do the search, you are going to get this box that comes down, and it's going to show you all the possible options in your current text for what you could have. And so you go down and go, oh, here's the word I'm looking for, messenger, angel. So even if you're a little uncomfortable with the Greek font, you still have a meaning here, and you can find the word that you want. It types it for you, and then you can do the search. And just to close, again, I'm only going to do this because we've been doing so much in searches. Accordance defaults to the phrase search. In other words, if you type in two words, like our Father, and do a search, then it's going to look for every verse that has the words our Father right there. If for some reason you wanted to find every verse that had our or Father, then you have to type in the command or, and then you get a totally different selection. So Accordance does default to a phrase search when you put in more than one word. Okay, that's it for the alphabet.